So even Sanderson presenter's email where he said, try to use not too much text, use as many images as possible. And I think I took it too literally because actually don't have a single line of text in all my slides. I even took the slide out with my name and title. But I try to be a good boy because he's just such an amazing leader. So we all hear this expression, thinking outside of a box. So for me, the box is this one, right, which enables amazing experiences and changes the world, but it's also very limiting as a delivery mechanism for visual experiences, right? So in 2005, I was lucky. I was a professor of visual art at the University of California, San Diego, and we opened a new research center called Collective 2, which brought together some leading researchers building new platforms for information visualization, such as this one, which consists from dozens of flat screens. And when I saw it in 2005, exactly 10 years ago, I had this aha moment. I imagined that what if I take all digitized Renaissance paintings from, let's say, 15th, 16th century Italy and put them on this wall and use computer vision to sort them by color, content, composition, and actually I have a better understanding of what Renaissance was. And that was even before social media exploded. So for the last 7 or 8 years, me and my collaborators in our research lab, which is now between the University of California, San Diego, and here at the Graduate Center at CUNY, where I teach, meanwhile also made a transition from being professor of art for 20 years, and 6 years ago I started learning Excel. Now I'm a professor of computer science, teaching PhD students R, just one step away. So we basically applied this idea of looking at large image collections and using visualization techniques and also basic techniques from computer vision to understand cultural patterns. So I'll show you a selection of about 5 projects. 3 of them will be using contemporary user-generated content, such as Instagram. But before that, I will show you a couple of projects where we look at collections of digitized historical imagery. So 2 years ago, we were invited by Museum of Modern Art in New York to look at their whole photo collection. And of course, we have everybody who is anybody from 1840s until today. But nobody has ever visualized their collection as a whole. So here we applied the most simple 200-year-old technique of bar graph. So it's a bar graph which shows you all the images in mobile photo collections, about 20,000, right? But it's a bar graph which is made from all the individual photographs in the collection. So when you zoom in, right, and you can suddenly look at the whole collection in a single image, you realize that it's a very particular representation of history of photography, right? It's all about the great people, but not only about great people, it's about the people which more things are important. So, for example, from 1920s and 1930s, you have lots of this kind of modernist abstract photography, and you don't have lots of photojournalism. And when you look at things as a whole, you can also see that MoMA is very strong in 1920s and 1930s, and that's why you have this kind of big spike. And there's a little bit of a spike in 1970, but other decades are not represented very strongly. Okay? So now, another example of project which we've done ourselves, self-generated project, is I said I'm interested in visual style of manga, right? One of the most popular cultural form today, Japanese, Chinese, French comics, originally started in Japan. Right? So here we have examples of manga pages, which are similar. In fact, we have similar entropy values, so just using single entropy feature. So there's not lots of detail, not lots of texture, very kind of black and white images. Here we have opposite style, lots of texture, 3D, lots of labor, so opposite end of a style spectrum. So using, again, very basic techniques of computer vision, we measured basic visual features such as entropy, standard deviation, and so on. And then using a little tool which I wrote, I'm very proud of it, because it turns out there was not actually a tool to visualize lots of images together, right? We simply sorted all these images. So that was done in 2009. It took about 2 days to render. Now it will take a few hours. So here's 1 million manga pages, which correspond to the most popular manga titles around the world, organized by 2 visual features. As you already saw, the feature which organizes images on the vertical axis is entropy. So you get images of very high entropy, lots of detail on the top of this cloud, when images with very low entropy, and opposite at the bottom. And now you basically, it's like discovering new continent, right? It's like, to use this kind of very bad metaphor, right? It's like people coming to America 500 years ago and discovering and mapping it out. So what is a map of this continent called manga? Like, what is the most popular manga being created, and what manga people don't create, right? So if I'm a young artist and I want maybe to make something original, I should really operate in the in the kind of lower right corner, or maybe in the upper left corner, because for whatever historical, cultural, evolutionary reasons, there hasn't been much manga created in this style. Right, so it's kind of diagnostic, it's like an X-ray of a cultural field. So now I'll show you briefly 3 projects we've done in the last few years, where we turned these concepts to look at user-generated content, specifically using Instagram. So for our first project done in 2013, it was called Photo Trails. We simply started in a very broad way. So we downloaded 2.3 million Instagram images from around the world, from 13 global cities. And then using, again, very simple visual techniques and this idea of like mapping big image samples together, we started to compare visual signatures of different cities. So here, for example, you have 50,000 images from San Francisco compared to 50,000 images from Tokyo, simply organized by average brightness and average hue. Okay? Now, you can also do it by time. Sorry. So here, for example, you have 1 week in Tel Aviv, Israel, right? So images again organized by hue and then by time and day of the week. So you get these little slices which correspond to every day, and you see these visual routines, right? So even though people are taking very different images for very different purposes, it adds up to a kind of visual statistics, right? A kind of visual signature of a city, but you have a couple of days at the bottom where something exceptional taking place. In fact, these are 2 most important kind of national celebrations in Israel, and you see something happened, but you also see that reflections of these exceptional events are just a little bit of signal, let's say, in the sea of, I wouldn't call it noise, but in the sea of everyday visual routine. So this is a close-up of the same image, so you can see we all made from individual photographs. So this is a little bit close to home. This is 24 hours, all the Instagram publicly shared images in Brooklyn, which we also downloaded during an event which took place, right, a couple of years ago, Hurricane Sandy. So the time goes clockwise. Again, the image is organized by time and then simply by average hue. And you know what happened at 10:23 p.m. on October 29th, right? The Con Edison stations went out of town, and you see how this much more dramatic event is immediately reflected both in the quantity and the different kinds of images, different features of images being shared. So in February of last year, we said, now let's make a new project. And as opposed to comparing arbitrary images from different cities where you compare apples and oranges, we said, let's compare images of particular kind. And we actually started to work on this project in 2013, a few months before selfie became very famous. So now it's maybe kind of more obvious. So we decided to download thousands of selfies from around the world and then use various visual techniques and a bit of computer vision to basically compare the selfies. Okay? So you'll see a video in a second, but the key part of the project is this interactive web-based interface, which we call Selfie-Exploratory, where you can basically progressively filter this database of 3,200 selfies for a bunch of features, a bunch of metadata, and then immediately see what the images are. And the creation of this kind of interfaces is, in fact, the key purpose of our research. We don't want to reduce the variety and the richness of the visual world to bar charts and pie charts, right? We want to be able to combine media browsing with graphs, because an image is not just a data point, an image is a whole visual universe. And I think this problem of how we can actually do it, for example, on a mobile device, hasn't really been addressed yet. So there's a short video which should play. Oh, I think I clicked too much, sorry. I'm really struggling. Can you hit the video? No? Yes. No? Okay. We can play it? Sorry, I can't do it with a clicker. Okay, well, I guess we'll go to the next project. So this is our latest project called Broadway. It's a website and installation which is installed for 13 months in New York Public Library on a 46 touchscreen. So here we're focusing even more, and we're visualizing all of New York by focusing on a single street, which is Broadway, and combining about 30 million data points and images. And the task is how to combine multiple layers of data in one interface. So we have everything from Google Street View facades, facade colors, information for 22 million taxi rides from along Broadway for last year, median income, Google Street View again, Instagram, and neighborhoods. And the idea is to create a kind of interface where you can navigate with, building by building, or you can zoom out using familiar touch gestures and go for the whole thing. And the idea is to downplay statistics and focus on images. And also the idea, can we create an interface navigating the city which doesn't have a familiar map? So we don't have a single map on the interface. And again, I'm really hoping that here, okay. So I know I'm a bit behind, but this is like 30 seconds and then it's over. So this is just, a screen capture with video, and you can interact with yourself if you go to your public library. So it just shows you navigation. So at any point, you can also click the bottom and get selection of Instagram images in a particular point. And using this kind of zoom interface, but in this horizontal manner, right? You can zoom out and see the whole city and all its patterns on one screen, or you can zoom in and you can navigate the city one building at a time. So it's this kind of zoomable interface, which is our attempt to think about, how we can put together kind of urban data and dozens or even hundreds of thousands of layers of data, how we can be presented to users in a visual interface. So I think I'm done. Thank you so much.